quest to find the lost treasure of a legendary sunken Spanish ship. Cue the fantastic opening musical number. It's a gleefully unpredictable voyage that regularly veers from intense highs to more laid-back lows, much like the waves that Majima sails upon. In one moment I'd be trapped in a desperate battle against a towering sea creature or an army of pirates of almost Dynasty Warriors-esque proportions, while the next I'd be adopting homeless animals off the street to shelter in my personal petting zoo, and throwing parties for me hearties whenever morale amongst my crew was on the wane. Pirate Yakuza doesn't just regularly hoist the Jolly Roger, it also lets its freak flag fly in a consistently entertaining fashion. And it kept me hooked harder than a handshake from, well, this guy.
I've waited long to shake your hand with this.
While 2023's Like a Dragon Gaiden experimented with a fairly superficial secret agent spin on the series' template, Pirate Yakuza steers Like a Dragon into some truly uncharted waters. There's plenty of lively naval combat to be enjoyed aboard Majima's adopted pirate ship, although to be clear, in terms of exploration, it doesn't attempt to match the sense of freedom I felt in the Caribbean setting of 2013's Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Instead, Pirate Yakuza's waters are broken down into a handful of smaller maps to warp between, rather than one big open water world. And outside of the main Honolulu hub and a stunning ship graveyard turned casino district called Madlantis, many of the smaller islands are constructed out of the same recycled layouts. So, over time, the sense of discovery slightly diminished whenever I dropped anchor and saw something a bit too familiar. Still, there's enough spectacle and strategic depth to the actual open water combat that I remained engaged anytime I was at the helm of Majima's ship. In each bilge-water battle, you can attack front-on with machine gun fire or perform a boost-based ram into an enemy's hull, as well as maneuver alongside a rival to deliver more damaging broadside attacks from your port or starboard cannons. These cannons can be upgraded by harvesting resources found drifting at sea or tucked around Pirate Yakuza's smattering of ports. And although Majima's frigate can be equipped with everything from flamethrowers to freeze guns, I soon set my sights on scraping together enough spare parts to outfit my vessel with powerful lasers to cut crossways through my opponents from ear to buccaneer. I was also regularly recruiting new pirates to my crew in every port I docked in, and it quickly became clear that assigning a crew member to specific roles had measurable impacts on each naval skirmish. Individual members of your pirating posse are ranked in areas like attack, defense, and cannon power, and anytime I placed some underpowered or inexperienced comrades in, say, my boarding party, I was forced to watch my crew go from ragtag to body bags in quick succession. After some experimentation, I eventually got the balance right, and that included determining the right pirate to be my first mate. While some candidates offered increased damage buffs or additional fuel drums to burn with my ship's boost, I opted to promote a mechanic into the role because it gave me 2 extra repair kits per clash.
Leave it to me!
Given I approach naval battles like Dave Chappelle approaches his stand-up sets, always on the offensive and typically blazed up by the end, it was enormously helpful to have those extra kits to haul my battle-scarred hull to glory. Some of the naval combat functions do seem a little superfluous though. For example, at no point in the story did I feel the need to step away from the helm in order to use Majima's rocket launcher, since the ship's artillery usually seemed ample enough, and it was also rare that I was compelled to manually put out fires on deck or thaw out ice that was blocking my cannons. That did change, however, after I beat the story and returned to complete the 30-odd escalating battles in Madlantis' Pirate Coliseum, as surviving its toughest encounters demanded the considered use of every ability at my disposal. That finally made for some welcome optional challenges outside of the main story path, but I wish they'd been in play earlier in the campaign. Of course, given that this is a Like a Dragon adventure, there are still plenty of opportunities for fisticuffs, either ashore or on deck anytime you board an enemy ship by force. In the default Mad Dog fighting stance, Pirate Yakuza reverts to the familiar brand of combo-based street fighting that was a staple of the series before the main entry shifted to turn-based brawls with 2020's Yakuza Like a Dragon. Majima can pull off fast and fluid combinations of punches, kicks, and rapid dagger slashes, each attack enhanced by flashy neon movement trails and punctuated by enemies that erupt into fountains of gold coins, as though they're crowds of criminal question blocks from the Mushroom Kingdom. However, Majima feels noticeably more agile than Kazuma Kiryu ever was, with a snappier quick step to open overbalanced enemies up to counter-attack, plus the useful ability to jump and air dodge out of harm's way anytime he's overwhelmed by a surprisingly numerous horde. Even so, once I'd unlocked the Sea Dog fighting stance a few hours in, I basically never looked back. While in previous Like a Dragon installments I've relished the freedom to switch between stances to best counter each enemy type or situation, Sea Dog is basically a one-size-fits brawl fighting style that feels adaptive enough to suit any given showdown. This pirating pose allows Majima to cut loose with a pair of cutlasses, either hurling them like bladed boomerangs or performing a brutal ballet of spinning slashes to cut through enemies in clusters. It equips him with a handy hook shot that allows him to zip directly to a targeted enemy like some sort of seafaring Spider-Man, which is extremely useful for picking off the more heavily armed goons that tend to snipe you from the far edges of each battle arena. If that's not enough, it also gives Majima a flintlock pistol of his own, and after investing in the skill tree to increase its power and widen its radius, I was able to use it to wipe out more pirates than dysentery at the charged up press of a button. So well-rounded and entertaining to use was the Sea Dog style, in fact, that the only time I ever felt the need to switch back to Mad Dog was in order to unleash Majima's slightly overpowered doppelganger attack. Available after you've chained together enough successful attacks to fill up a special meter, this devastating ability conjures up twin Majima clones that swarm enemies and chew through their health bars for a short time like a pair of piranhas. And I was happy to have it in my back pocket for whenever I came up against one of the more brutish boss encounters. Although I think Infinite Wealth's hybrid turn-based combat has quite rightfully become the standard for the Like a Dragon series, Pirate Yakuza's flashy fighting remained engaging from the first sword slash through to the final throat cut, and I found it to be a substantial step up from the gadget-heavy grappling of Like a Dragon Gaiden. Although Pirate Yakuza's Honolulu setting is more or less the same sun-drenched sprawl that featured in Infinite Wealth, there are enough new secrets and distractions that made it rewarding to explore a second time around. Outside of combat, Majima's hookshot can be employed to zip him up to anchor points on certain buildings, meaning that treasure chests full of alternate character costumes and other goodies are tucked away on hotel awnings and various other elevated spots all over the island. There are also countless bounty targets to track down and beat up for beefy cash bonuses, Master System cartridges to seek out, exams to sit, fish to catch, and recipes to cook in the most flamboyant way possible. In addition to the fiend photographing Sicko Snap and the infectiously giddy super crazy delivery minigames that return from Infinite Wealth, Pirate Yakuza brings back Dragon Kart from Yakuza Like a Dragon. Only this time, in addition to its riotous racing circuits, they've bolted on an arena-based battle mode which made for some intense four-wheeled firefights. Meanwhile, the series' standard-issue batting cage minigame has been revitalized by swapping baseballs for cannonballs, and I had a great time knocking destructive dingers into descending stacks of explosive barrels. I was also delighted with almost every sub-story I completed in Majima's adventure. Some were utterly wholesome, like the time I agreed to bring an aging businessman aboard my ship in order to live out his boyhood fantasies of becoming a pirate. Others were funny piss takes of online culture, like when Majima was recruited to become a Virtua Fighter 3 streamer, and I had to choose the liveliest possible reactions for him in order to prevent the comments section from turning too hostile. Others still were completely bonkers, like the sub-story that suddenly spins out into a live-action episode of a dating show inspired by The Bachelor, as the ship's cook Masaru tries to woo 5 different potential dates with hilariously awkward results. There's even a supersized sub-story that sees Majima and his ever-expanding crew hunt down the dread pirate Zeus and his intimidating Devil Flag's fleet. This chunky optional quest opened up additional maps to navigate, including an archipelago of volcanic islands and even an ice realm, each overloaded with increasingly powerful naval vessels to face off against and pirate headquarters to plunder. Not only is undertaking this journey worthwhile purely for harvesting the doubloons required to upgrade Majima and his ship with decked-out drip, including this carved Kazuma Kiryu figurehead for its bow and this puffy shirt that's straight out of Seinfeld.
This is gonna be the new look for the 90s. You're gonna be the first pirate. But I don't wanna be a pirate.
But it's also the only way to track down all 4 fabled instruments of the Dark Gods. These cursed fiddles and ocarinas are used to perform some of the most spectacular summoning attacks in Pirate Yakuza. So it's a little odd that they're locked away in an entirely optional sub-story that's so easy to overlook. Propelled by a breezy and often completely bananas treasure hunting tale, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is a delightful spin-off that seamlessly shifts between street thuggery and skullduggery. Majima's Sea Dog stance is one of the most fun and flexible fighting styles I've enjoyed in the series to date, at least in its classic combo-based form. And I enjoyed the challenge of carefully managing my crew in order to survive the many turbulent naval battles. While its overworld maps feel a little padded out with recycled island settings, Honolulu itself is jammed with unpredictable sub-stories and overhauled activities that ensured that every moment of shore leave was full of surprises. Absolutely heaving with buried treasures and varied pleasures, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is a consistently captivating voyage that kept my timbers shivering whether on land or at sea.
Honestly, have you got any idea what you're doing?
Go right. See?
Stop helping him. It only shows how hopeless he is.
Guys, you're acting like you're any better at this. See? Got it. Now, off to the base to create another one of you. Nut jobs. There. You hear that? Whenever there's an obstacle, the first thing that comes to your head is, let's make another more competent yacht.
All right.
Relax.
What a boomer.
Make it. Boom. Oh my god.
Unbelievable.
You know you can fast travel once you establish a mining outpost. You're giving him too much. Guys, shut it, okay? Or I'll turn this thing off, and you're all going back to work.
Come on, try again, Jan. There'll be a whiner.
Damn. Look, all right? Jan is handling things. You think Jan has time for your pet talks? Pause for a second. Disgusting. Should I point out that we have an equivalent of 12 Earth days before the sunrise? Zoom out, if you may.
The base is a mess, and we don't have repair kits.
Oh, you hear that?
Okay, I can see room for improvement here.
Hold on. Maybe you could build something useful for a change? Like that greenhouse?
Oh, there we are. You remember that gym you promised? That's not a bad idea.
No, scroll up. We need some quality food.
Keep your hats on. It's my decision.
Are you fucking serious? Unbelievable. Just have the courage to say no to idiotic ideas.
Hey, it's not my fault Jan made me a scrawny wimp like he is.
Screw this.
I'm heading out. Maybe. The rest of you can complain all you want.
Planning on running away from your problems forever?
It's not like he ever listens to us anyway. There's no food, by the way. See? That's because Jan doesn't handle shit here. Okay, I've had it. Ah, crap. The alarm again. This is your... Get off my back, man. Can't you see we're heading for disaster? I told you this was a bad idea. You have to save this base now. Screw this. I'm leaving. Oh, where? There's a magnetic storm outside.
Yeah. Hey, you only treat us like human beings when you need us. Human beings? You're all practically me. I feel objectified.
Tokyo Extreme Racer is a PlayStation 2 game. Now, years of YouTube comments from cynical types who were likely still jostling around inside an ovary at the dawn of the millennium may have taught you that PS2 is a pejorative, a one-size-fits-all put-down wielded against anything that doesn't melt the microprocessors off a graphics card. But it doesn't have to be. The PS2 was an incredible console, brimming with great, approachable games that achieved exactly what they set out to do, were hopelessly addictive, and completely unburdened by microtransactions and live service malarkey. This succinctly describes Genki's 2025 Tokyo Extreme Racer reboot, which recently arrived in early access on Steam. A fantastically Moorish blast from the past that's simple on the surface, steeped in high-speed thrills, and, for now at least, unapologetically single player. That's what makes it a game in the grand style of the PS2, and for that, I already love it. For clarity, I'm aware the overall lineage of this series dates back to 1994's Shitoku Battle on Super Nintendo, and the Tokyo Extreme Racer name itself can be traced back to the series' Dreamcast debut and sequel in the US. However, in PAL territories, those carried different titles, and that's why I'm waxing romantic about the PS2, because 2001's Tokyo Extreme Racer on Sony's all-conquering console was my first exposure to the series, and I admire how closely Genki has stuck to its enduring format well over 2 decades later. For those who haven't had the pleasure, the Tokyo Extreme Racing series focuses strictly on highway street racing, taking a heavy dose of inspiration from the real-life underground racing scene that peaked on Tokyo's expressways back in the 90s. This was made infamous by the likes of the highly secretive Midnight Club, an allegedly disbanded racing community still shrouded in mystery today thanks to anonymity amongst its members and its strict low-profile policies. After choosing an on-ramp to enter the freeway system, which faithfully recreates Tokyo's actual Shuto Expressway network, the aim is to cruise and hunt down rival racers to challenge. Races are triggered on the fly by flashing your headlights behind potential rivals, and won unconventionally. There are no finish lines here. Instead, their spirit point bar will drain to empty as they drop further and further behind you, collide with members of the public, or graze the walls. It's part racing game, part fighting game, and it still works as well as it ever did. Wisely, Genki hasn't tampered with any of this, and it remains the structure of Tokyo Extreme Racer's early access revival in 2025. The graphics have received a handsome enough modern makeover, but otherwise it's a staunchly old school experience. The result is terrific, and I'm hooked once more. Dueling against an opponent and slicing through late night freeway traffic in a single direction may sound limited and repetitive. In a way, I guess it is, and yet it's utterly absorbing. Even in early access, Tokyo Extreme Racer features over 200 named opponents to seek, stalk, and destroy. Some are boss characters that will only emerge after you encounter the rest of their race team members and leave them for dust. Some can only be found and raced under certain circumstances, or if you perform specific tasks, the clues for which you can glean from conversations with rivals in parking areas. The writing in these conversations tends to be a bit overwrought, and the story itself leans a little too melodramatic for my tastes, but there is a goofy charm to it that I can stomach, much like this guy. The difference in difficulty between some of these opponents can be stark at times, so I will say that my experience has been a little uneven. One moment I'll be beating every buster I find, and the next some mystery hotshot is simply galloping away. Races that are evenly matched and decided by tactical slipstreaming or goading your opponent into an obstacle are the most fun, but they're a little too uncommon. This has the potential to create the occasional logjam in your progression because a lot of the upgrade paths are gated behind meeting certain criteria. Needing to beat specific races in order to earn the ability to purchase better parts might be a sore spot if you're already spinning your wheels trying to lure out and beat those races in the first place. It's a bit of a catch-22, and it's probably the primary reason I'm not a huge fan of these sorts of roadblocks in racing games. I'm generally of the opinion that if you have the credits, you should just be able to buy any cars and parts within your means. At any rate, this is the sort of early access feedback that, with any luck, should provide Genki the data to smooth out bumps in its progression road. Despite the occasional frustrating session, I'm still thoroughly addicted to vanquishing every rival I find. Each time you leave the garage represents the start of an in-game night, which concludes when you choose to return to the garage to spend your credits, or simply head straight out again for the next evening. Just one more night, I tell myself for the 10th time before heading back out into the expressways in search of prey. It's hard to quit, and not just because the option to actually do so from the garage is buried in a hidden menu I initially had no idea how to reach. You can't do it from your controller, in case you're wondering. You have to hit tab on your keyboard. In more ways than just that, the menu system does need refinement, as it also lacks quick D-pad support and requires us to use an analog stick as a mouse. It'd also benefit from some kind of global back button shortcut, so returning to the main garage screen from elsewhere, like the tuning menus, wouldn't require opening the menu bar and manually moving the cursor. Little tweaks like that would significantly sharpen up the process of menu navigation. Car handling, though, already has a slick arcade feel that's nicely tuned for smooth steering on a controller at high speed. That said, the chase view does lack the kind of looseness I crave in this sort of racing game, so even minor steering adjustments can be amplified to jarring yaws by the time they reach the trailing camera. This feels like something that could be tuned or potentially supplemented with an additional chase camera that isn't so stiff. For now, it's far easier to drive smoothly using bonnet cam. The list of cars whose bonnets you can see from there is a good start, and features just under 50 Japanese models at launch. Toyota, Subaru, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Mazda, Daihatsu and Suzuki are all in there. Honda remains conspicuously absent though. The cars look fine without being show-stopping, but they don't pick up damage or boast a level of detail as lavish as the vehicles featured in racing genre heavy hitters like Gran Turismo 7. However, the bigger issue at the moment is how they sound. Right now, Tokyo Extreme Racer isn't so much extreme as it is tinny and toothless compared to any one of its arcade racing peers like Forza Horizon, Need for Speed, or even Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. It's the one part of this retro game I wish wasn't stuck in the past. Anyway, in broad terms, a lot of the usual suspects are already on these streets. There's certainly plenty of room for it to grow, and looking at the car list for 2003's Tokyo Extreme Racer 3, I'm sure I could make some fairly educated guesses regarding what may join a garage. What I will say, however, is I'd love to be more regularly surprised going forward. That is, some Japanese cars that get little to no love in video games would be perfect. Give us a Datsun 620, a 910 Bluebird wagon. Hell, what about a Mazda Road Pacer? I'm sure dropping in a custom 4-rotor would solve its acceleration problems. Let's go nuts! Tokyo Extreme Racer is an infectiously addictive time capsule of a racing game that needs little more than a bit of menu refinement and some major aggression injected into its sound to really soup it up and prep it for even more classic Japanese cars to race in and against. In fact, it's already well worth its early access asking price. It's narrow in scope, but its highway battle hook makes it hard to put down, and its total lack of modern baggage like microtransactions and tacked-on multiplayer is outright refreshing.
Welcome to Geek Media, a brand new podcast network from IGN Entertainment, where we celebrate games.
Time to begin our Game of the Year.
Tech.
Do the same results at 20 watts.
And entertainment.
Welcome to IGN Live!
We connect you with the stories, voices, and topics you love.
I love Soul Calibur. Banger fighting game series. I wish it would come back.
Geek Media is an ever-growing collection of some of the biggest and best scripted...
You just kind of, and you cease to exist.
...and unscripted podcasts in the world.
We were talking about a Spider-Man video game. It's not like, a 401k or anything.
And they're all told through a vibrant audio community that celebrates and empowers the geek in everyone.
Absolutely adored that game. I think it's one of the best platformers made.
We're building a global community of enthusiasts, igniting growth and creativity across every platform, and we invite you to join the conversation. And hey, when you're here, everything is better. That's why Geek Media is everywhere you are. We reach over 490 million people every month across 110 countries. And with over 83 million followers across every social media site, you won't have to go far to find us.
Hey, what's up, Super Ninfrendos?
We got this locked down.
You can tune into any of our shows on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We can't wait to geek out with you. Geek Media. Behind every story is a geek. There was no guide for what we had to do, no manual for leaving a world behind. But even we knew we couldn't take everything with us. Some things were too fragile to follow. I left behind my greatest creation, a guardian, a caretaker. Its hands shaped to nurture, its heart programmed to protect. It works tirelessly now, crafting vessels from the bones of a broken world, sending sparks of life into the void. The task I gave it was impossible, but isn't that what hope always is?
Why does the sun go on shining? Why does the sea rush to shore? And oh, they know it's the end of the world. It ended when you said goodbye.
Jumping headfirst into Mecha Break's chaotic, frenzied combat is overwhelming at first. That's partially because its presentation is dizzyingly stylish, with flashing neon beams and blisteringly fast mechas screaming through the sky as you and your teammates do your best to capture a king of the hill-like objective or push a payload. The chaos amps up the energy and tension of each skirmish, and certain bots, like my favorite, the Falcon, have additional abilities to help kick up the speed of a match even further. Mecha Break showed lots of promise during my last hands-on preview in January, and now, after a few more hours of hands-on time with the multiplayer mech shooter in its open beta, I've had the opportunity to experiment with more of Mecha Break's arsenal of mecha, as well as get a better feel for its modes and controls. And I'm still highly impressed with its arena shooter-style gameplay and how good it looks.
Oh, sweet! A pyrogenesis striker! Yeah! Aleseness initiated. Mind projection system activated.
While my go-to mech is good for jetting around above the battlefield, laying suppressing fire and stacking up assists, it's kind of a glass cannon. That's where something like the Tricera comes in. New in this beta, this tanky terror is appropriately named after the armored dinosaur. It may be slow and less maneuverable than Falcon, but what it lacks in speed and mobility, it makes up for in raw firepower with its twin Gatling guns, overhead cannon, and beefy shields. Each mecha truly feels and plays differently, and I loved swapping between them from match to match. Even the act of unlocking new mecha is really cool. Instead of just gaining a new selection in your pre-match lobby, unlocking a mech using one of two in-game currencies I encountered triggers a really flashy cutscene, flexing Mecha Break's stellar mecha design while showcasing some of the new chassis' capabilities. It does remind me a bit of unlocking a new playable character in a gacha game, which points to some potentially concerning monetization practices. Emphasizing my concerns, Mecha Break appears to have something resembling a battle pass, complete with premium and free tiers along with a premium currency. Everything I saw in the beta was free, and most of the apparently premium unlockables I found were cosmetic, with only one mecha being gated behind battle pass progression. But just as gameplay in a game's beta might not reflect the final version at launch, monetization and in-game mecha or currency prices might not be final either. The looming threat of aggressive monetization tactics aside, I had lots of fun with this beta, even if I had some trouble shaking off my rust after a few months. After a match or two spent grappling with its controls thanks to an unfortunately scant tutorial, I was eventually able to get back up to snuff with Mecha Break's fast-paced gameplay. As I unlocked and tried out more and more mecha, things started to fall back into place.
Eyes on this target.
Its half-baked tutorial, which doesn't seem like it's changed or improved much since my last preview, left me with more questions about the starter mecha's abilities. This was even more frustrating given the fact that you can take any mecha into a firing range of sorts to test out its abilities from the main menu after completing the tutorial, which was a much easier way to learn each machine's strengths and weaknesses free from the introductory level's dissociative chaos. It doesn't help that the tutorial begins abruptly, seemingly in the middle of a story without any context, and doesn't have any bearing on the rest of what I saw in the beta. Backed by flat, generic dialogue trying to squeeze story and plot into a place where it doesn't make much sense, the tutorial, where you essentially march forward shooting spongy enemies before taking on a titanic boss mech, felt like an entirely different game compared to its high-energy multiplayer, which I couldn't put down. The modes I saw all followed pretty standard objective-based modes you'd find in any team shooter. I escorted payloads and captured objectives and had lots of fun doing it thanks to Mecha Break's combat, which is easily the star of the show. By catering to different playstyles and power sets, each mecha felt distinct and natural within its suite of abilities. Equipped with a diverse mix of melee and ranged attacks and helpful abilities like cloaking or shields, I found something to enjoy in every match I played, not just ones where I got to play as the mecha I was best or most comfortable with. While this beta doesn't add too much new content on top of what I've already seen in previous versions, it did cement my excitement for Mecha Break's eventual launch thanks to its polished gameplay and visual style. But it also left me more wary about its other modes, which are still gated off, and its monetization structures. Let's hope my worst fears about those don't come to pass.
In an era of live services, MMOs, and generally disconnected online experiences, the idea of local multiplayer is quickly becoming a rarity. And while we've seen a handful of great couch co-op experiences pop up here and there, such as TMNT Shredder's Revenge, Overcooked, and even Hazelight Studios' very own It Takes Two, I can't think of anything I've played recently that resonated with me quite like Split Fiction. From its plethora of varying gameplay types, such as a twin-stick shooter, a pinball-inspired puzzle platformer, and in one instance, a hot dog simulator. To its dazzling graphics and believable character dialogue, Split Fiction is looking to not only be another standout title in a year full of promising releases, but something that anyone who's looking for a fun and unique local multiplayer game should pencil in on their gaming calendar.
All right.
In Split Fiction, you play as either Mio or Zoe, two aspiring writers who are chosen to take part in an early test of a machine that'll bring their stories to life.
You can't
From what I saw, this plot device not only helps build the world of Split Fiction, but it also provides a perfect excuse to seamlessly transition between its sci-fi and fantasy settings. During the few hours I got to play, jumping back and forth never felt forced or tedious, and while I'm admittedly not the biggest fan of fantasy, unless the word final is attached in some way, I've never found myself getting bored of Zoe's fantasy worlds. This was supported by Split Fiction's well-written and believable dialogue between its characters, which helped convince me that I was watching two real people who are polar opposites interact with each other in their own make-believe worlds.
What are you expecting? We're cyber ninjas.
If you played Hazelight's previous games, It Takes Two and A Way Out, you probably have a pretty good idea of what's in store for you with Split Fiction, a shared multiplayer experience on either the same or a split screen that's full of cleverly designed puzzles that require teamwork and communication, all wrapped up in a nice-looking and well-written package. What sets Split Fiction apart from other couch co-op games is its clever integration of numerous gameplay styles, keeping the experience fresh and, engaging.
Oh, that's rude.
In fact, the variety of gameplay styles in Split Fiction is easily its most standout feature, and during my brief time with it, it was clear that this isn't another standard two-player puzzle beat-em-up experience. Hazelight obviously took its time to refine the variety of gameplay types here because, nothing felt like it was rushed or created in order to add variety for the sake of variety. One standout moment for me was a section where our heroes have to snowboard their way out of an active war zone, which felt more like a blend of Sonic Adventure Battle and SSX than your typical on-rails downhill spectacle. In this moment, Split Fiction introduced a points mechanic, where I had to compete against my partner, performing as many grinds, grabs, and flip tricks as possible while trying to avoid death. While this mechanic has been done before in more games I can count, the fact that this instance is just one of dozens really shows the potential of fun things to do in Split Fiction. That's not to say they're all hits though. One section had us playing a hybrid of a platformer and pinball where I was controlling the ball and my partner was controlling the pinball paddles. This required some precise timing on our ends, and it was a creative way to introduce a slower puzzle mechanic to a game that has a surprising amount of action in it. While I found myself getting a bit frustrated whenever I messed up a badly timed jump, The satisfaction I felt once my partner and I finished any of the campaign's collaborative tasks really elevated the experience.
There we go.
Thank God.
And just to be clear, Split Fiction is 100% a collaborative experience that keeps you on your toes throughout. Single player is not an option. But unlike most co-op games where both players need to fight a screen full of enemies or break a bunch of blocks in order to progress to the next level, Split Fiction requires a heavy amount of teamwork and critical thinking from both players in its heavy action as well as its more mellower puzzle sections. Throughout my demo time, I found myself communicating with my partner and working together to try to figure out puzzles and bosses because, refreshingly, Split Fiction doesn't hold your hand whatsoever. That's not to say that this is suddenly a Souls-like in terms of difficulty, but there wasn't a moment where the UI pointed us in the right direction or gave us a hint on what to do.
Oh, you were so close.
Which is kind of the point of Split Fiction and co-op games as a whole, and this definitely made my demo a really fun and rewarding experience.
All right.
Hell yeah.
In a time where every game can either be played solo or is completely full of NPCs, or people online don't really want to talk or interact outside of a few words here and there, myself included, Split Fiction really looks to raise the bar on what a co-op experience can be. I appreciated everything from its interesting use of multiple gameplay styles spanning across many genres to its cleverly written dialogue and beautiful looking worlds. Plus, the fact that it requires you to actively play with someone else and think outside the box to solve its puzzles. And in a year packed with dozens of promising releases, Split Fiction is definitely looking to set itself apart from the pack in a way that few games can.
Whoa, how cool are these screens?
For more on Split Fiction, check out the latest trailer. And for everything else co-op, sci-fi, and fantasy gaming, stick with IGN.
High five!
As both a chosen godlike imbued with magical powers and the envoy of the Emperor, your character is granted a downright irresponsible amount of authority to do whatever you please. And you're dispatched to the wild continent of the Living Lands to put an end to a mysterious plague of madness called the Dream Scourge. There's no big hurry though, so you can also find time to aid any person on the street who asks you for help with whatever personal problem they might have.
Come back when you've dealt with them. And make sure you get their leader, too.
You'll spend your days delving into ruined yet beautiful caves, sewers, and forgotten places in search of loot and XP while taking every opportunity to wail on beasts and ne'er-do-wells with swords, bows, and spells. Yes, this is basically the premise of every Western RPG for the past several decades, but that's because it's a formula that works reliably. Avowed executes almost every aspect of it quite well. This is especially true of the dialogue and story, which is without question the thing Avowed does best. Unraveling the mystery of the fungal Dream Scourge and the otherworldly forces at play is a journey well worth seeing to its conclusion, especially since your decisions can have a profound impact on how things end up. Granted, most of the twists and turns that Avowed's plot sets up become pretty apparent well before your character and their companions become aware of them, which is a bit disappointing given the Pillars of Eternity series' track record for wild revelations that took me by surprise.
Looks more like a curse to me.
Even so, the story kept the adventure running full steam the whole time, especially with interesting choices to make to keep you company along the way. In my case, that took 50 hours, but that was kind of a completionist run. You could burn through it in half that time.
Really? I wouldn't know what to do with that much encouragement.
Bantering alongside your 4 companions is especially delightful. Each of them brings their own opinions, personal problems for you to untangle.
I appreciate these little moments.
And cool combat and puzzle-solving abilities to rely upon while exploring the Living Lands.
Ready, aim.
Hanging out with Kai, the sarcastic reptilian mercenary with a fondness for woodworking, is rarely dull.
That almost does sound like a punishment.
And bringing the furry, cat-like, and relentlessly horny mage Yatsli along will almost guarantee you won't have to go very long without some choice innuendos.
What? Out of breath already? Talk to one of the boys. See if they can help with your stamina, dear.
Sadly, she's just a tease. You can't actually romance any of them, and the social links you can develop are fairly shallow. That's not crucial or anything, but it seems like a missed opportunity for a relatively easy win. It's otherwise great at building camaraderie with your eclectic found family, and even a fade to black sexy time scene can give you something to remember an RPG playthrough by. Just saying.
And let me tell you, Waking up in a cold sweat does nothing for my fur.
When you aren't chatting up the locals, you'll probably be sending them back to the wheel for reincarnation via Avowed's tumultuous combat. You'll face off against the usual baddies, from typical fantasy creatures and animals, to creepy wraiths and people driven to madness by the Dream Scourge. Fighting with melee weapons and magic feels smoother and more competent than it does in many similar fantasy RPGs, but evading dozens of enemies as they charge through sickly marshes and barren deserts isn't as easy as it looks. I spent most of my time playing as a squishy wizard who had little in the way of protection and had to do my best to keep my distance, quick dodge like a champ, and rain down as many high-powered spells as I could to keep them at bay. I'm especially fond of how this one turns enemies into floating piñatas, and this one just zaps everybody in a big area. Alternatively, there are more martial character build options that require more blocking, stabbing, and making use of power attacks to break the enemy's guard, and each of these has their own skill trees that let you do neat things, like smack enemies onto their backs with a powerful ramming attack. As someone who insists on playing on the hardest difficulty on my first run, I definitely found myself knocked on my butt more than a few times, and accidentally stumbling into an area that I wasn't properly leveled for was quite humbling, but it was never insurmountable. My biggest issue with combat is in the variety of opponents. For the vast majority of my 50-hour completionist run, I found myself fighting the same handful of enemy types everywhere I ventured, and almost none of them are interesting or unique in their behaviors to begin with. There's of course skeletons in need of re-killing, oversized spiders that spit gunk at you, and bears, oh my. Just as an aside, by God, there are so many bears in this world. Even when it doesn't really make any sense for them to be here, they throw a few bears into the mix. Why are there two of them sitting around a campfire with bandits? What are they pets? They've got two pet bears? Okay. Anyway, after a few hours, the novelty of fighting these humdrum fantasy baddies and my interest in squaring off against them diminished. Every once in a while, something big, scary, and unexpected would arrive and make me remember how to defeat a non-bear opponent, but these welcome surprises are too few and far between. Thankfully, there's plenty more to do and see while exploring each of Avowed's 4 substantial open-world hubs, each filled with side quests to complete, minor puzzles to solve, hidden chests to loot, and people to talk smack to.
Get out before we use your bones to make Petru a new cage.
It's a structure that resembles the Outer Worlds' separate planets. None of the maps are especially big, but they make great use of the space they have, and they're all delightfully colorful and brimming with personality that's a welcome change from the sometimes drab and dull places we end up exploring in other RPGs. There's also a surprising amount of uneven terrain, since Avowed really seems to want you to engage with its parkour system that lets you mantle up ledges and do some minor platforming to reach hidden places. You won't be wall running or swinging from poles like you find in Dying Light, but it's still a nice touch that gives you something else to do when you're exploring the living lands. However, while these maps are great to explore the first time you go through them, they don't give you many reasons to stick around or run through again since enemies never respawn. This is a blessing insofar as you don't have to retread the same areas to fight monsters and bears that have arbitrarily reappeared, but it also means any backtracking is completely devoid of life. They're empty to the point where I felt extremely pressured to move on to the next zone as soon as possible because it felt as if the cleanup crew was going to show up to break down the set and remove the furniture at any moment. Here's a clip of me walking across an entire map without encountering a single enemy. Yet if there's one thing that impressed me the most about Avowed, it's the fact that across my 50+ hours with it on Xbox Series X, I encountered almost no glitches or technical issues worth mentioning. There was one time where I unwittingly killed an optional boss before accepting the quest to hunt it down, another where my compass wouldn't tell me where to go for the next part of the main story, and sometimes I'd see odd polygons pop in and out while exploring the world. But I can count the number of times these things happened on one hand, and I didn't experience a single crash even once during my entire time playing. That's all but unprecedented for this genre, and an extremely welcome surprise. With awesome world building and stellar character writing, Avowed reminds me why I fell in love with Obsidian RPGs in the first place. However, the bigger picture is that it plays it quite safe, with a by-the-numbers fantasy adventure that's more familiar than evolutionary, and there's barely any enemy variety to keep its swords and sorcery battles interesting for long. Even if it doesn't swing for the fences or leave a memorable mark on the genre though, it's still perfectly competent with all the tried and true stuff I expect, including chaotic combat, leveling systems, and a loot progression that lets you build the kind of character you want to play, and meaningful decisions that can have a massive impact on the world. Plus, the whole thing's surprisingly technically stable compared to its reliably unreliable peers. I enjoyed my time parkouring my way through Eora, and think you will too. Just don't expect Avowed to show you anything you haven't seen before.
Before we begin, I just need to say that the footage in this video was provided by Bandai Namco, as no capture was permitted during the event. So unfortunately, some of the really cool things I talk about may not always be perfectly represented on screen. Now, on to the preview.
Tragedy must be averted. And for that, I need your help.
Elden Ring Night Rain is not a battle royale. Not that you ever thought it was, but as a former battle royale enjoyer, I can't help but compare the white knuckle moments I get when the storm closes in on me in those last gripping moments of a half-hour-long session of a Fortnite match to the nail-biting bits where I'm desperately trying to outrun the encroaching circle and make it to a life-saving site of grace in Night Rain. PvP elements are completely absent in Night Rain, though not missed one bit. Still, you'll drop into a map with a squad, start from nothing, and spend your time ransacking the map to hopefully power yourself up for the final battle. From the risk-reward moments of looting a church for one more flask charge as the circle closes in, to the wave of sadness you feel when experiencing a devastating loss after taking so much time building yourself up, it's hard not to see the Battle Royale influences. But after 4 hours of playing the upcoming stress test build, I'm ecstatic to report that Night Rain probably won't tarnish the Elden Ring name. When beginning a match, you'll be given a choice to pick one of 4 available classes, though there will be a total of 8 when Night Rain launches. The current options will be the all-arounder Wilder, the speedy glass cannon Duchess, the tanky Guardian, and the magic-wielding Recluse. Each class has its own strengths and weaknesses, of course, but in my time with this build, I found that the most fun class to play was the Duchess, thanks to her powerful abilities and swift and nimble dodges. I also spent some time with the Recluse, which was incredibly powerful, but I ran out of FP quite often, and with no FP flasks, they aren't in this Elden Ring, she'll definitely be one of the harder classes to play effectively. Each class comes equipped with a leveling path, which I'll talk about more in a moment, but more importantly, they all have unique skill and ultimate abilities. The Duchess, for example, has an incredibly powerful skill that repeats the last 1.5 seconds of damage an enemy has just taken, and it has a short cooldown to boot. Also, it's not just your damage, it's everyone's damage. So while you're flipping around the battlefield landing attacks, you're also waiting for huge health spikes to doubling that damage. It's great stuff. Other skills also match the class's predetermined role. The Wilder can do a blast attack to try to land big damage. The Guardian can create a large shield, both negating damage and reviving fallen allies, while the Recluse can curse an enemy, granting all attackers HP and FP bonuses. So while players can double up classes in a run, it's always a good idea to talk about team strengths and weaknesses to diversify your group. When starting completely fresh, players will find themselves in Night Rain's Roundtable Hold. After matchmaking with 2 other random players, or using a multiplayer password to play directly with your friends, a small cutscene will play and everyone will soar over Limvale, not Limgrave, before landing and beginning their run. A full run of Night Rain lasts around 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how fast you take down the ending bosses. While it's presented as a 3-day cycle, it really boils down to 5 separate phases: Day 1, Night 1, Day 2, Night 2, and the final boss. When day 1 begins, the map is fully open, and that's when you'll begin exploring and leveling up. Everyone's level 1 at the outset with basic starting gear, save for relics that you're rewarded with at the end of every round that grant you persistent buffs between matches, with better relics being offered for better performances. Once landed, my team always beelined for the first enemy camp we could find for a quick boost of experience to begin leveling up, which was key to defeating stronger foes. From there, you'll decide what your team wants to do by looking at the surrounding area on the map, as it will be littered with points of interest for you to explore. Each point of interest typically comes with predictable rewards. Churches will house a flask charge to increase your overall health potion uses. Castles will feature a mini-boss that drops more powerful gear, and rises, similar to Rani's Rise found in the lands between, will present a simple puzzle to solve before entering to find even more gear. Just to name a few of many. Where to go in Limvale feels kind of overwhelming at first, but the threat of the ever-closing circle will eventually train your brain to keep on the move. Speed is the name of the game during the day cycle, and luckily everything seems to be built around that. For starters, leveling up is as quick as a button press. As I mentioned, each of the 4 network test classes has a predetermined stat upgrade path. So when you run up to a site of grace to refill your health, FP, and flash charges, you'll also be presented with the leveling menu, which only requires you to press confirm to increase your level. Heck, you may even have enough rooms to level up 3 or 4 times, and with 3 or 4 button presses, you're all done and substantially more powerful. If you have experience in Souls games, the day phases should be a breeze. While searching the map for loot upgrades, I ran into recognizable Elden Ring mobs. My team and I decided to take down a camp, but first we had to fight 3 scattered fire chariots before getting our loot reward. Another time, we climbed to the top of a castle to fight a Godskin noble. That should be scary, but with 2 other tarnished by your side, these mobs and bosses go down pretty fast. Moving around is also way faster than in the original Elden Ring. You won't be clawing the controller anymore, since sprinting is moved from circle, or B, to simply clicking the left stick. Sprinting is also about twice as fast as the regular Elden Ring. Fall damage? Nope, none here. Getting down a cliff is easy, and you can even run up walls parkour style, or use spirit springs to get around. Besides just rune hunting to raise your level, you'll also be trying to build a character to take on the night bosses. There is no armor, save for shields, in Night Rain. Only 6 weapon slots and 2 amulet slots. How it works is, in typical Elden Ring fashion, you can switch between your left and right-handed weapons and shields on the fly, but everything on your person will give you buffs. For example, let's say you found a Reduvia dagger with high bleed. If you so choose, this could be the start of a bleed build. Now let's say you take down a boss and you're presented with a few other weapons to choose from, and you spot a spear that increases your status effect buildups. You're not going to use that spear, as you'll want to stick with your dagger, but you'll still benefit from the status effect buildup the spear provides just by having it on your person. Think of it almost like a roguelike. Sometimes the synergy of weapon effects and stat upgrades you'll get will build off each other so well that you'll eventually start melting mobs left and right. Other times you'll want something like a poison build, only to keep getting weapons that increase your FP regeneration. Bummer. Weapons aren't the only rewards either. Oftentimes when looting a boss, you'll get to choose a stat upgrade or a modifier. Some of these are less exciting than others, such as a 10% increase in physical damage. Useful, yes. Exciting, not so much. Other times you'll get something really cool like a passive power-up that drops a big poise-breaking lightning strike every time you dodge, or an enemy slowing frost nova every time you begin to sprint. You can work these into your build for some powerful combinations. While the day phases can feel like a walk in the park, it's the night bosses that serve as a real skill check. After the circle has closed enough to end a day phase, a minor Erd tree will appear, signaling that it's time to take on the night boss. Over the hours I played, my team ranged from completely decimating the Night 1 boss to barely scraping by. If someone goes down, you'll revive that person by simply attacking their downed body, with ever-increasing attacks needed the more often they drop. Regardless, the way the night 1 ends will usually inform you on how the rest of the run will go. I've seen teams come back from barely scraping by the night 1 boss, but if that boss was tough, you're likely behind in your leveling and you'll have an uphill battle ahead of you to have a chance against the night 2 boss. Day 2 begins the same way Day 1 did. You'll once again have a full map to explore to level and find better equipment and power-ups. Occasionally, you'll be invaded by a random Margit the Fell Omen who will chase you until he dies or he wipes your party. If your team wipes during the day, you'll drop your runes and respawn at the nearest site of grace. You can recover your runes, but the main thing lost here is time, which was wasted fighting an enemy you didn't get a reward from and wasted having to recover your lost runes. If your team wipes during a night boss, it's game over, and you'll need to begin a new run. By the time Night 2 rears its ugly head, it's time for the final skill check. During our playtest, we were met with 2 different night bosses. You'll either be faced with the Centipede Demon, who is tough but feels somewhat manageable, or 3 Sentinel Knights that really suck. In my 6 or 7 full runs of Night Rain, my team was only able to get past Night 2 just once. Finally, Day 3 is incredibly straightforward. There isn't one. Instead, you'll be able to spend your last bit of runes either leveling up or buying consumable items from a vendor, and then you and your team will take on the final boss of the run. As I mentioned before, depending on how far you got in your run, each player will be rewarded with a relic that provides a persistent upgrade for your characters. These can range from simple stat increases to modifiers that will set you on a build path right from the jump. For my preview, this seems to be the only meaningful progression Night Rain has to offer, though I imagine the full game may have more in store for us. Elden Ring Night Rain is a lot of fun. Pulling off victories by the skin of your teeth provides the same sense of accomplishment you felt when taking down some of Elden Ring's toughest foes. The moment a round ended, I couldn't wait to jump back in to see what kind of build I'd get the next time around. And the cheer my team let out when we finally took down that blasted Day 3 boss reminds me why I love the Souls-like genre so much. In its current form, Night Rain could be seen as a little content light, so I'm incredibly interested to see how it shakes out when it releases sometime in 2025. But for now, it's been a few days since I've played Night Rain, and still, it's all I think about. I absolutely can't wait to jump back in for more.
IGN Fan Fest 2025 is here. From Monster Hunter Wilds to Mythic Quest, Daredevil Born Again, let's dance, to Devil May Cry. Coming up, Promise Mascot Agency, Fire Force Season 3, The Apothecary Diaries, and Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Fan Fest Day 3 starts right now.
Hello and welcome to IGN Fan Fest. Today is day 3 of our 5-day-long celebration of everything you love. I'm Kim Horcher.
And I'm Alan Wheeler. I hope you're ready because today's show is going to be a blur of interviews and exclusive clips from highly anticipated shows like Netflix's Devil May Cry, Fire Force, and more.
But it's not just anime. We also have extended looks at upcoming games like Star of Providence, Wuchang Fallen Feathers, and Bleach Rebirth of Souls, Bandai Namco's upcoming fighter based on the beloved anime series.
But now, FanFest is just about to turn up the heat, blow off some steam, and hopefully brighten your day up with this exclusive world premiere trailer for Fire Force Season 3. Careful, it's hot.
IGN ファンフェストをご覧いただいている皆さん、はじめまして。永遠の消防隊で主人公のシンラの声優を担当しております梶原岳人です。今回テレビアニメ第3期となる永遠の消防隊3の章が2025年4月、そして2026年1月分割2クールにてクランチロールでの配信が決定いたしました。ファンの皆様大変お待たせいたしました。ありがとうございます。今回3の章はですね、もうすでに着々とアフレコが進んでおりまして、だいぶ皆さん熱が上がってきてるんですけども、もうなんといってもですね、アクションはもちろん素晴らしいですし、コメディ笑いの部分も今回ちょっとパワーアップしてるなとアフレコしている身からすればとても思っているところでございますので、もうアクションとそしてコメディの部分とどちらも期待していただければと思っております。よろしくお願いします。最終章ついに開幕です。ぜひクランチロールをご覧ください。そして今回なんとこの IGN ファンフェストでまだどこにも公開されていない第2弾 PV を全世界初公開いたします。3の章がどうなっていくのか想像しながらぜひお楽しみください。以上、梶原岳人でした。お楽しみください。
大隊長が連行された。
軍は白装束と一緒にいたと聞く。
なんてこと。
つまり大隊長は白装束に捕まったと考えていい。奴らの目的はアドラバーストを持つ神羅の確保だろう。
目的は
この地球を太陽にすることです。かつての太陽がそうしたように。
今こそ真に一つとなる必要があります。広告のために、太陽神のために。
神に我が身を捧げることこそ私の生き方。
出している葬ら人となって
務めますよ。立派な家族にできるよう
死ね。
俺の名は岸よアーサー・ボイ。
第8話お前の願いは頼むぞ。何も叶った。
ヒーローになるって誓ったんだ。全て救ってみせる。
のそばに来て
Hi IGN Fan Fest, I'm Ado. My second world tour, Hibana, powered by Crunchyroll, kicks off in April. Tickets are going fast, so make sure to check out the schedule and see you there. Today, I am inviting you to enter to win an exclusive opportunity to see me live in concert. You can go ign.com right now for your chance to win tickets as part of IGN Fan Fest. Log on now and be sure to enter.
何ですかこれ。
牛タンです。
熊の胆のを乾かしたもので苦味がありますが消化器系の病で重宝される貴重な生薬です。
喜んでいただけて何よりです。本当はジンス様が直接渡したかったようですが。
皆さんこんにちは、生田リラです。アニメ薬屋の独り言でオープニングテーマ百花繚乱を歌唱しています。第2期がついに1月10日からクランチロールにて配信スタートします。海外では好きなものへまっすぐ突き進み、自分の知識で謎を解き明かしていくマオマオがとても人気だと聞きました。主題歌百花繚乱はですね、マオマオの新しい世界に飛び込んでいく中で果敢にいろんなことに挑戦していって、その中で感じる心の機微みたいなものをイメージして制作しましたので、マオマオ人種たちの物語と合わせてぜひ楽曲もお楽しみいただけたら嬉しいです。アニメ薬屋の独り言第2期もぜひクランチロールでお楽しみください。
If you're just joining us, IGN Fan Fest still has much more to come, with many surprises along the way. The anime extravaganza...
Woo! What's up, IGN
IGN Fan Fest, I gotta tell you, what I've seen so far is impressive. The anime from Crunchyroll is looking good. And while that exclusive clip from Fire Force Season 3 was pure fire, there still is only one person capable of really crushing it and bringing the heat, and that is me. Let's go!
Okay, hold it. Hi. You really think you can compare with someone that can ignite their feet with pure fire?
Well, yeah, I've lit you up in the ring plenty of times.
Okay, that was one time.
Okay, so anyway, as 1/3 of the WoW World Trio Champions top tier, I am entitled to do and say whatever I want.
Oh, yeah? Well, if you're such a big talker and such a hard hitter, well, why don't you throw down here? Now.
Let's go!
Right. Oh, my goodness. Save it for the ring. We need this energy. Hold it, ladies. Okay, let's focus on IGN Fan Fest, right? That's why we're here. The amazing lineup ahead is so great. Tons of amazing games to upcoming Netflix shows like Devil May Cry. There's plenty for everyone to check out, so stick around.
私は王となった。最も強き王。王の役目とは戦争の代理人、暴力装置でしかないのだ。なぜ涙を流す？
大切な人を守りたい。
最強の王様、二度目の人生は何をする？
That's how it started. Basically, it just did well enough where it's like, hey, now do you want to adapt it into a comic? And I'm like, sure. And yeah, now it's an anime.
Hello, we are here with the creator of The Beginning After the End. You may know him as Turtle Me. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I've read quite a bit of the story. How did you come up with the idea for a character to reincarnate with all his advanced knowledge right at birth? I mean, to me, it sounds great. It's like pretty much a New Game Plus kind of story, but does it come from a personal place for you? How did you arrive there?
Right. As much as I would love to take credit for pioneering this, there's been a lot of stories that had this sort of theme into it where, you know, reincarnation, the whole isekai genre that's so popular right now. 10 years ago when I started writing it, it wasn't as popular, and there was a couple of like light novels in Japan that I was reading that kind of inspired me. It's like, oh, this is really cool, and like I don't really see this in English.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of like my mind going into, oh, like I wonder if this is a story that I could kind of write. And it came from a place when, you know, I was working my day-to-day job,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, after work, just to kind of unwind, to de-stress, I would, you know, just start writing for fun. And that was sort of my outlet.
Awesome. I mean, were you inspired by any other manga, anime, movies, books, stories in general when you were creating this story?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up reading so much that The Beginning After the End has sort of become this culmination of a lot of different stories that I just digested throughout like elementary, middle school, high school, college. You know, I was a big fan of manga growing up. You know, I would, back when it wasn't as accessible as it is today.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, starting from that, I also read a lot of like just fantasy epics, starting with like, you know, Aragon,
cool.
Yeah, and Lord of the Rings, like all the like the classics. And it kind of, you know, there was a sort of a niche that I was interested in that wasn't really available in the States,
Mm-hmm.
in English. So I started looking in like Korean web novels and like Chinese like wuxia novels as well, and just sort of spiraled down from there. Yeah, so just to name like a couple, again, Aragon, the whole fantasy epic really inspired me to write out this fantasy world. And like Mushoku Tensei is a title that really made me think about what reincarnation would be like. And so just to name those two, those were some cool inspirations that always spoke back to me when I began writing T-Bait.
Awesome. I mean, it's great to get inspiration. And I want to get back to what you said earlier, in that this is an English-American title, and it's rare to see that sort of story adapted into a Japanese anime. I think it's only happened a few times, so the fact that T-Bait is going that way is pretty special. Could you talk about how this came about?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of, you know, partners that were advocates of, you know, trying to make the beginning after the end into an anime. And so, you know, I don't want to discredit any of the hard work that they put into making the anime happen. Some parts of it I'm not really too privy of, but I do know that, you know, Crunchyroll and Tapas and I have been in talks for a really long time about, you know, making the anime happen. And as things were actually, you know, starting to move in the right direction and, you know, things were all clicking, Studio ACAT actually was the one that volunteered and, you know, raised their hand and be like, we really like this story and we want to adapt it. And so, you know, it's an honor that a studio and a director was so, you know, just liked my story enough to want to volunteer to do that, which doesn't happen very often.
Is the beginning after the end anime a pretty faithful recreation of the story your readers are familiar with, or would you say there are new and different elements added to it? Will they end in basically the same way?
I would say, for the most part, it really does stay faithful to the source material. However, you know, the director does have his visions, and so far it's been really cool seeing those. You know, in the end, the anime is a very different medium compared to the comic and for the novel, and so, you know, the director coming in as the expert in this medium as the anime, you know, I've learned a lot about how the same story might be told in a little bit different way.
What do you think new watchers who haven't read the beginning after the end, what do you want them to take away from it?
I would like to think that the beginning after the end has layers where it can be enjoyed on a surface level. I hope that it can be just enjoyment content where you don't have to think too deeply and you can just turn on the TV and watch it. But for the people that do want to think a bit more and want to sort of explore why the main character or the cast sort of made the choices that they did, I hope that the story that I tell, you know, kind of creates those sort of layers where it's not just a pure action like adventure story, but, you know, it also delves into the identity of a king that wasn't the perfect human, that has reincarnated and has a second chance, that to live in a world where he has things that he was missing in his previous life, you know, friends, family. And so I touch upon a lot of those sort of characteristics, like those character choices, and you know, the action fantasy part is just like the backdrop of it.
I want to talk a little bit about what we started this conversation with, your pen name, Turtle Me. Where did this come from?
It came from a place in the past where I did not think that it would be used this publicly. So a little bit of regrets there. I wish I thought of something cooler, but I'm glad that it sticks out, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a question that always gets asked, like, it's an unusual name, right? But it really just came from, you know, I had to create a user ID for the online publishing platform that I was on, and I was just thinking about, you know, when a reader reads the author username, I wanted to think, oh, okay, this writer won't be writing that fast, like a turtle, slow and steady.
Oh.
Yeah, and I guess it was a way of me putting less pressure on myself, and like, okay, you know, I'm like a turtle. I'll just write slowly. You know, this, because it started off as a hobby. I'm gonna do it for my enjoyment, and at a pace that I want to. And so the whole slow and steady wins the race sort of thing.
Oh, that's great. I want to, again, touch on something you discussed earlier. You said you were working your regular job when you were starting the story, and you do have a really interesting story as a writer. I saw previously you had mentioned in a different interview that you had a steady job in finance when you started writing as an outlet, and then you partnered with Tapas, and it is lesser known, and you self-published. So can you talk about that journey and the leaps you took to get to where you are today?
Right, yeah, that's a great question and a lot to think about. But I think when I first started off, again, I really just thought of writing as a hobby, as an outlet. It was something that I could do to turn off my brain or to use a different part of my brain. And so, I didn't really think too much of it, but at what point that kind of started to change was when more and more readers were sort of tuning in every time I released a chapter. And so it reached the point where I'm like, there's a lot of people kind of reading this. Like I kind of need to be serious about it. And I thought I would be doing a disservice to my fans if I was only, 1 foot in. I wanted to take responsibility of that. And so I started doing it more regularly. I started being a bit more professional and having a set schedule. And that kind of helped really garner a reader base that, trusted that, he's sticking through this. And that's when Tapas came in, where, the editor at the time, Gabby, who I, still work with very closely, she was like, hey, I work for this small company that is this startup. Like, are you interested in just publishing the beginning after the end there? At first, I kind of thought it was a scam, to be honest. But I looked into it. Too. I looked into it, and I saw that it was pretty cool what they were doing. There weren't that many webcomic platforms that also had web novels at that time, and I thought it would be a cool opportunity to get readers more inclined to seeing the beginning after the end as not just a novel, but a potential comic as well. That's how it started. Basically, it just did well enough where it's like, hey, now do you want to adapt it into a comic? And I'm like, sure. And yeah, now it's an anime.
That's incredible. It changed your whole career.
Yeah. It definitely was not something that I was expecting to be, expecting to happen. Growing up reading so much manga, I always thought that there was a set path for an anime to be made, which is, it had to be a manga first, and it had to have originated from Japan. So it's really cool to be at the forefront of all these barriers being broken.
Is this your second life, kind of like Arthur's?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't think of it that way, but in a way, yeah. I think writing has really given me so many opportunities that I haven't even dreamed of. I didn't even dream of, like, when I was in college and thinking about, like, what am I going to do? Because since from high school all the way to college, when I was majoring in psychology, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do with this. And so being able to, use my degree in psychology and being like, okay, this may be how, like, people think. Just like, in essence, there's no huge theories that I'm using, but like, just being educated in psychology, I'm a bit more aware of what makes people do certain things and why they think that way. And coming in a full circle, being able to use that in a way that I didn't think I would need to, as in writing, it really is sort of like a second life where I'm using my past knowledge to improve my craft in this new life.
Lastly, I hear you have something special you'd like to share with the audience today.
Yes, I found out not too long ago myself, but there will be a new trailer and key visual coming out next week.
Awesome. So that sounds really exciting. Thank you again, Brandon, for joining us today. There's loads more Fan Fest coming up, so stick around.
In Rush of Ichor, you assume the role of a powerful avatar, infusing and summoning legendary champions, building iconic locations, and casting mystical spells to claim your dominance in this battle for ultimate possibility. Join 2 other avatars to defeat your foes and fight towards a common goal in the Rush of Ichor. Presented by Rush of Ichor. Rush of Ichor is Upper Deck's highly anticipated TCG, offering a unique, fast-paced 3 versus 3 team battle format. You and 2 allies must unite to take on an opposing team of 3 in an all-out strategic showdown. Both teams must summon champions with the ultimate goal of acquiring enough Ichor to claim victory. Players must take to the battlefield to counter enemy raids for Ichor, while simultaneously raiding for their own. To claim victory, you'll need a well-balanced team. Each player may take on a specialized role. Prefer playing support? Maybe you thrive as a damage dealer? Or perhaps defense is your specialty? The choice is yours. Refine and customize your deck with the mysterious power of Ichor through infusion cards. These cards grant your champion new abilities and traits. With 2,740 different combinations of cards, deck building has never been more immersive. A single champion can be infused a multitude of ways, resulting in a vast amount of unique game experiences. Each Rush of Ichor starter deck comes with 3 infusion cards with a total of 45 available across the first iteration of the game. And collectors, take note, rare and super rare editions of cards let you stand out in battle. Rush of Ichor launches worldwide June 2025 and will be available at your favorite local hobby and gaming store. It can also be found online through Upper Deck's network of authorized internet retailers and on upperdeckstore.com.
FanFest is presented by the Army National Guard, serving our communities and helping those in need. Are you ready to make a difference? FanFest is presented by Mecha Break, open beta available now on PC and Xbox with crossplay.
IGN Plus is where your adventure begins.
What are you selling?
Plus is the place to get unlimited access to all the tools you need to beat your games.
Here's what you need to know for bringing down Gloomspawn.
Plus, awesome exclusive discounts on IGN Store.
Maybe this would tease open your money pouch.
Plus, ad-free browsing on IGN.com. Plus, unlimited game help tools like premium interactive maps with your own custom map markers, filters, marker notes, and more.
This will come in handy.
Plus, access to sweepstakes, giveaways, and free game keys.
Wow!
Exactly. Want more? Head to IGN.com/plus and start your adventure today. IGN Store has it all. From clothes and collectibles to vinyl records, accessories, model kits, and action figures from the biggest and best franchises like The Legend of Zelda, Star Wars, Fallout, Dungeons & Dragons, and more. Whatever your pop culture passion, you're guaranteed to find something you love. There are new and exciting products hitting the store every week, like the Wasteland-ready Fallout Vault 33 hoodie, which pairs perfectly with the working wearable Pip-Boy. Plus, high-quality IGN Store exclusives like the powerful and spicy Star Wars Darkside Hot Sauce by Truff. We've even got merchandise for you to rock while tuning in to the IGN shows and podcasts you love. Or cap off a long day by relaxing to the soundtracks of your favorite video games, like Cyberpunk and The Last of Us. And the best part? You don't even need to leave the house to go there. Just head to store.ign.com and start shopping today. The IGN Store. You deserve it.
Now it's time to gear up for a block of trailers showing off some upcoming games that you won't want to miss. Here we go.
So you survived after all, I see. That's disappointing.
Fan Fest is presented by Mecha Break. Open beta available now on PC and Xbox with crossplay.
FanFest is presented by Rush of iCore. Learn more at upperdeck.com/iCore.
The average Cinefix movie list features nearly 100 different films and approximately 25 minutes worth of wall-to-wall deep dive analysis. To simulate that pace for this 30-second ad, we're featuring 26 different films, and before you say it, no, that math does not check out. We're not math people, we're movie people. We can't even count down from 10 without ending up at, like, 96. Subscribe to IGN Movies and TV for more Cinefix movie lists. Bad at math, great at movies.
Can't find that final collectible you're missing? IGN strategy guides and interactive maps are here to help.
One step at a time.
IGN guides are trusted by millions, easy to use, and best of all, free. IGN has the very best, most complete and accurate guides for Shadow of the Erdtree, Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, and so much more.
See? It's good, right?
Every guide is tested and verified for you by experts. Just search for IGN when you search for guides.
IGN Plus is where your adventure begins.
What are you selling?
Plus is the place to get unlimited access to all the tools you need to beat your games.
Here's what you need to know for bringing down Gloomspawn.
Plus, awesome exclusive discounts on IGN Store.
Maybe this would tease open your money pouch.
Plus, ad-free browsing on IGN.com. Plus, unlimited game help tools like premium interactive maps with your own custom map markers, filters, marker notes, and more.
This will come in handy.
Plus, access to sweepstakes, giveaways, and free game keys.
Wow! Exactly.
Want more? Head to IGN.com/plus and start your adventure today.
Day 3 of IGN Fan Fest is nearing the end. But don't forget, there are still 2 whole days left featuring tons of trailers, exclusive clips, deep dives, and interviews you won't find anywhere else.
Speaking of which, before we call it a day, we have one more of those up our sleeve. We sat down with the always eccentric Adi Shankar to hear about how he adapted the beloved video game series Devil May Cry into an all-new Netflix original animated series.
Yeah, and he'll be joined by the voice of Dante, Johnny Young Bosch, who's already played anime protagonists with iconic red coats in Trigun and Akira. So really, he was the obvious choice.
Here's Devil May Cry. Roll it!
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
Hey, look! The Three Stooges came out to play. The way this usually goes is I do that, then drop a killer one-liner. But I'm drawing a complete blank right now. This never happens to me, I swear. Okay, wait, I got one. Pretend I just shot that guy. Bang! Man, Skeletor did not hold up since the 80s. Not my best work, but you get it.
I don't really look at it as permission. I just start making things, and then kind of who shows up, and then people show up. And it's kind of always been that way.
His name is Dante.
Adi Shankar made something really special when he adapted Castlevania into an anime series for Netflix. Now he's giving Devil May Cry a similar treatment. Here to tell us more, our series creator, Adi Shankar, and Johnny Young Bosch, the new voice of Dante. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Matt Damon. You.
After so many years talking about Castlevania at Comic-Con.
2017, I had Power Gloves on.
Yes, it was very cool. And that Castlevania show turned out awesome. I loved it. Now, what attracted you to Devil May Cry and made you want to adapt that into an animated series?
So going back to 2001, PlayStation 2, played the game, loved it. Fast forward, Devil May Cry is considered niche, at least amongst Hollywood, right? But to Hollywood, everything's super niche. But to me, it was this beautiful thing that a few of us got, a few of us understood, and to me, it kind of was flowing through my veins, right? Because I'm into this kind of thing. This is like my vibe, right? Like I used to dress like a character from Devil May Cry. In fact, when I first went and sat down with Capcom, just to talk generally, I was dressed like a character from Devil May Cry. Cool, right? I had that vibe, and then it was Capcom who was like, I like your outfit. You should be doing Devil May Cry. And then, so that spurred it. You know what else was considered niche once? Iron Man.
Yeah, good point.
Iron Man used to be completely niche. Iron Man was, niche. So I wanted to take the thing that I love and blow it up. Blow it up. Turn it into, but again, not in a sellout mainstream kind of way. That's not what I'm trying to do here. It kind of like what Christopher Nolan did for Batman.
That turned out pretty well.
Right. Again, Batman had been blown up before, but he did it in a different kind of way. And what Christopher Nolan did was he created a Batman movie that film snobs got to be film snobby about. And hopefully I've created a Devil May Cry animated series that film snobs and snobs of every variety can be snobby about together online on Discord servers.
I don't think people are never snobs about anything online. That sounds very cool. Johnny, you're not new to Devil May Cry. You were actually in Devil May Cry 5.
4.
4?
And 5.
4 and 5.
And you were in the manga as well, right?
In the manga as well. Yeah.
But in the games you're playing Nero.
That is correct.
You're not playing Dante. How do you approach these two characters differently?
Well, to be honest, Nero, my approach was to play a young Dante, but with a bit more angst. He's it's easier to push his buttons.
Stop saying cry. My shoulder. I know you wanna.
You say cry again. Devil May Cry. It's just a different thing. The characters are different. The world, the way that it's being presented, both of them are very different.
You talk about Devil May Cry being seen as niche. Was it
by Hollywood?
By Hollywood, sure.
Who views everything as niche?
Got it. But was it the success of Castlevania that sort of convinced people to let you have another shot with Devil May Cry?
I don't really look at it as permission. I just start making things, and then kind of who shows up, and then people show up. And it's kind of always been that way.
So what game in the series would you say the show is most similar to in its vibe?
So tonally, I would say DMC 3, but the show is mostly based on the DMC 3 manga, right? So there was actually 3 DMC mangas. 2 were released, 1 was unreleased. But again, I'm drawing from the entire, universe because it's the Devil May Cry franchise is much deeper. There's like a stage play. There's a pachinko game.
There's a
pachinko game. There's
I did mocap for that.
Yeah. There's multiple novels. There's different mangas. There's comic books. So the lore is very, very, very rich, very deep. So it kind of allowed me to pull from all of it.
I don't know if this is a spoiler, but will V, Nero, or other popular characters from the games appear in the show?
Of course.
Great. Confirmed.
No, I know I confirmed nothing by just saying of course.
We know that Limp Bizkit's Rollin' is the theme song for the show. Is this a very new metal show? Are there going to be other famous new metal songs sort of in the show?
Yes.
Perfect.
Also spliced in with my favorite game tracks.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just new metal, and then it's gonna be all of it.
Okay, well I think you brought a clip of this today. Let's take a look.
Hey, look! The Three Stooges came out to play. way this usually goes is I do that, then drop a killer one-liner. But I'm drawing a complete blank right now. This never happens to me, I swear. Okay, wait, I got one. Pretend I just shot that guy. Bang! Man, Skeletor did not hold up since the 80s. Not my best work, but you get it.
That was fun, man.
Yeah, that looks great.
It feels very DMC.
Yeah, I was gonna say like,
Sure.
I mean, it's got to be cool and surreal to, perform in an adaptation of a game that you've played so long ago and loved, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and then, I mean, that's my first time seeing any of it, so I can't wait for people to, especially the fans that have played through, so that they can be like, all right, let's keep going,
Okay, so we've seen a little bit of the show. We thought it'd be fun if Johnny has agreed to be a very good sport and is going to take a crack at delivering one of the most infamous lines from the original Devil May Cry. And we have a clip of this scene that we can show you right here, just sort of set the stage.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
The echo really highlights the voice crack in that.
Yes.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is the line, yeah.
I think you should do it while looking at me. You should do it.
I'm going to end up spitting in your face. No.
It's okay.
Hang on.
It's okay. We should make deep eye contact, and then you should do it. There's no other way to do it.
That's going to be impossible. I can barely do it right now.
Johnny, I believe in you.
About the
We all
lines.
believe in you.
Okay. All right, fine.
You're like an iconic voice actor.
All right.
And actor.
All right.
And martial artist.
But you're Trish.
I'm Trish.
You're Trish. you just sacrificed yourself for me, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what happened? And that's why you saying I should have been the one?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light. Okay. Got to find the emotion.
Are we recording this?
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go.
So, just for all the viewers watching, I am now Trish.
Now Trish.
And I will be playing Trish from henceforth.
And scene.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Yeah. All right, there you go, Trish.
I felt that.
Loved it. Did you?
I felt
Loved
that
it.
in my soul.
Did that?
I actually felt like
you
a dark
pick it
soul
up on the microphone?
Oh, yeah, I think they picked it up. I think that was an improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, was your dark soul being filled with light? Mine was.
Yeah, that was good. Should try to work
I
that.
actually did motion capture for Trish.
Really?
Once. Yeah.
That's a real thing?
That's a real thing.
That's cool.
That's great.
Well, I'm getting a little teary up. We should wrap this up before I start crying here.
I should actually redo that and post that, huh?
Yeah.
Devil May Cry arrives on Netflix April 3rd. Adi, Johnny, thank you so much for joining us today. Dear viewers, for more on your favorite video games and animated series, stay tuned, IGN.
And there you have it. That was IGN Fan Fest Day 3. Don't Devil May Cry because it's over. Devil May smile because it happened.
We've got lots for you all to look forward to over the next few days, like the return of that iconic 90s reptile Gex, an interview with the developers of the chaotic upcoming shooter Fragpunk, plus a peek at some new gaming hardware from the folks over at Cracked.
And that's just tomorrow. Day 5 will see us diving even deeper into a very different type of Fan Fest, with Universal Studios Hollywood's Fan Fest Nights, no relation to our Fan Fest, and we'll have interviews with the cast and crew of Daredevil Born Again, The White Lotus, Survivor, and tons more.
That's all for today, but we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific for another fun-filled day of IGN Fan Fest. We'll see you then.
Fan Fest is presented by War Robots Frontiers. Pre-register now for an exclusive reward. Fan Fest is presented by the Army National Guard. Rise to every challenge and overcome everything. The next greatest generation is now.
The Cinefix Top 100. A list so secretive even we don't know what movies are on it or where they rank.
What do you mean you don't know?
Each episode will reveal one of the movies.
Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed it. That was good. I liked it.
Talk about why it belongs and finally find out where it ranks.
Are you not entertained?
Are any of the movies we've shown here even on the list? I have no idea, and it drives me crazy. Join us as we find out on Cinefix, IGN, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Why so serious?
IGN Plus is where your adventure begins.
What are you selling?
Plus is the place to get unlimited access to all the tools you need to beat your games.
Here's what you need to know for bringing down Gloomspawn.
Plus, awesome exclusive discounts on IGN Store.
Maybe this would tease open your money pouch.
Plus, ad-free browsing on IGN.com. Plus, unlimited game help tools like premium interactive maps with your own custom map markers, filters, marker notes, and more.
This will come in handy.
Plus, access to sweepstakes, giveaways, and free game keys.
Wow! Exactly.
Want more? Head to IGN.com/plus and start your adventure today.
Can't find that final collectible you're missing? IGN strategy guides and interactive maps are here to help.
One step at a time.
IGN guides are trusted by millions, easy to use, and best of all, free. IGN has the very best, most complete and accurate guides for Shadow of the Erdtree, Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, and so much more.
See? It's good, right?
Every guide is tested and verified for you by experts. Just search for IGN when you search for guides.